Live, the news on NBC6 at 11.
With the Everglades to our west, the ocean to our east, South Florida is home to some of the most environmentally and progressive communities in the entire country. NBC6 meteorologist Steve McLaughlin, he shows us what a local town is doing to help out.
Keith, we recently visited one of those places, Lauderdale-By-The-Sea, to see how they're tackling some very serious environmental issues.
The beaches of Miami-Dade and Broward counties are a cherished resource where the biodiversity of the ocean meets the cultural diversity of South Florida. Making sure the beach is healthy for future generations actually begins in the ocean itself.
Corals are the living organism that create our reefs. Reefs are created by the growth of corals, one on top of each other for hundreds and hundreds of years. And if you lose the corals that live on top, that reef growth will eventually stop.
Reefs around the world are dying because of climate change and the warming oceans, which begin the bleaching process. In South Florida, we have the added stress of massive construction projects. The runoff can get into the sewers and canals and eventually the oceans.
Well, if it wasn't for coral reefs, we wouldn't have the beaches that we're standing on right now. Coral reefs provide a physical barrier for storm events, those big wave events. If it wasn't for reefs, our beach erosion would be much, much greater than it is now, and that's costly.
In 2014, the town of Lauderdale-By-The-Sea began working with Nova Southeastern University to help restore and conserve the corals just offshore.
And one of the things that we do is we grow these corals in offshore coral nurseries. So we take small pieces of coral and we hang them on what we call trees, and these small pieces grow into larger corals like this one I have in my hand. And when they get large enough, we can remove these corals from our offshore nursery and we can bring them back to the reef, transplant them on the reef, and then they grow and then hopefully help repopulate the reef and repopulate this particular species.
Coral reefs aren't just about protecting the beach, but protecting the local economy of South Florida.
All of our nearshore fisheries depend upon coral reefs. Without coral, we're not going to have those reefs, we're not going to have those fishes. And I think we know how important our recreation is and our tourism is for South Florida in terms of our economic engine.
1, 2, 3, big step.
I think it's extremely important, number one, being the beach dive capital of the world for scuba diving and for snorkeling.
Lauderdale-By-The-Sea Mayor Chris Vincent is proud of the town's environmental programs, even if the country as a whole isn't nearly as forward-thinking.
Sometimes I think the United States is lagging behind with respect to environmental concerns, and I think there's a lot of countries that are ahead of the curve.
And so since 2014, we've been working with the town. We have outplanted over 5,000 corals, and we have plans to outplant probably nearly that many in the next couple of years. We're going to keep doing this absolutely as long as we can. Now, like everything, nothing's free. Right. So much that we do depends upon research funds, but as long as we have the means to continue to grow corals in our nursery, expand our nursery, add new species, and work with municipalities like the town of Lauderdale-By-The-Sea, we will absolutely continue to do this to help our South Florida reef resources.
And coming up in part 2 of our series a few days down the road, we'll show you how Lauderdale-By-The-Sea is protecting its coastline at the source, the beach itself. Reporting from the studio, meteorologist Steve McLaughlin, NBC6 News.